Hi guys, how are you? Today I wanted to talk about the commercial We Believe the Best Man Can Be by Gillette. So let's start the analysis.
Before starting to analyze the commercial of Gillette, it is necessary to mention and put into context the images presented in the video. The commercial is called We Believe the Best Man Can Be. It is a part of a campaign that aims to help social goals. It was released on January 13, 2019 and was directed by Kim Garrick. In this commercial, men and behaviors that have remained for several years are seen as protagonists. This time, Gillette tries to send a different message than it has sent in previous advertising campaigns. In this commercial, what stands out is certain negative attitudes that have been assigned to men, especially behaviors related to sexual matters. This campaign wants to raise funds to donate to different organizations for girls and boys so that they can reach their best version, as expressed in the video. Through the comparison of images and the commitment that Gillette wants to have with future generations, Gillette's We Believe the Best Man Can Be advertisement argues how men have to change the negative attitudes they may have. To start with the analysis of the rhetorical appeals, we can start by pathos. Pathos can be analyzed through the images and through other aspects that contribute to different appeals to feelings. One that seemed to me the most important is the reference the pride or empowerment that the brand wants to achieve, the social change they want. This is done through the music as the music goes from less to more, and this causes people to raise their self-esteem and want to do something with all the will they have. This makes the feeling of empowerment towards men to change is reinforced. The presence of Terry Crews is important because he is a famous actor, and the scene of his speech personally seems to attempt to break the stereotypes that have surrounded men in previous years and to accomplish the goal of the commercial. In other scenes, we can see pathos through appealing to the sadness or frustration felt by some men or young boys who do not follow these patterns that supposedly define masculinity. For example, when a woman is seen hugging a boy and those messages appear with negative adjectives, or when there was a scene from a movie or a video where a man appeared surrounded by women in bikinis and then three boys who supposedly are not within the male canon. Besides, all of this evolution of the mood of the commercial is very clear because we don't see any more faces of regret or guilt from the first scenes. We see a face of a kid who is proud of his father for saving the other kid. In the video, we can analyze ethos from the images or from the people who appear in the commercial. First of all, the most important sample of ethos is how in the audio and during a scene we're listening and watching different news programs that are talking about issues of sexual violence or sexual abuse. Similarly, they want to create credibility through the figure of Terry Crews because he's a very recognized actor and his profession has given him a certain authority or credibility with the audience. One part that can be related to ethos is the way Gillette uses videos of real life scenes and where men are breaking this pattern that Gillette wants to help eliminate. This has believability because people are seeing real cases and not just scenes of people acting, so it's a proof or facts that Gillette's goal can be reached. To continue with the analysis of the Gillette commercial, we must focus on the rhetorical aspect logos. This means how the commercial is structured and how the sequence and organization of images makes a logical process. Based on the rest of my analysis, I have realized that Gillette's argument is divided in two parts. The first part I like to call realizing or visualizing the problem. By this I mean that the first part only shows the scenes that reflect the bad attitudes that men can have against themselves and against other people. This is seen from the first scenes until the second 49 of the video. In this first part, we can see that the emotion goes from less to more. Besides that, for the construction of the argument, the music is fundamental and for the images and the soundtrack are the ones that accompany the argument to be logical. The second part I would like to call it as a new reality or a new dawn. I like to call it like this because Gillette tries to accompany it with the new scenes and the soundtrack to reach the goal of his argument. In these new scenes we can see the counterpart of the scenes of the first part. We can realize that now there are scenes that show the solidarity that men can have if they leave all those bad and old habits aside. To analyze Kairos, we have to focus on the sociological movements that were part of the reality at the time of the commercial's launch. In a socio-political context, The United States and the whole world was living for several years a movement in favor of women's rights and LGBT communities. The timing was not the best to launch the video, because many people interpreted it as a criticism of all men. Then people who study gender relations, several people who know about the subject, and people on social networks have come out to defend men and argue that Gillette's message, however intelligent or accurate it may be, is poorly formulated in this video according to the people who were dissatisfied with the video. Summarizing what we have gone through during the whole video, we can say that Gillette mostly uses images to support or use the different rhetorical strategies. Only with Karius it differs, because in Karius we analyze how the timing may or may not have been appropriate to launch the commercial. On a personal level, I made a reflection through analysis and by reading the different perspectives that people had about the commercial. I agree with both sides, because in a certain sense I think it's very good that a brand that has focused on reinforcing masculinity is now making an analysis or wants to send a message to men about the need to unlearn several habits that society has reproduced over the years. But what many people criticize, and what I agree, is that you cannot put men in the same bag and say that they are like that. People's nature is not defined by their gender or sex, but by other factors during the formative stage. But all in all, I think it's good that society begins to have spaces for dialogue on these issues, and many other that, as they were sensitive, have been hidden for fear of talking about them.